Okay. You ready? Okay. Memory stores stories, layers within layers, recoverings resurface. Going over same old ground, time and time again, reiterating reincarnations, driving well-worn pathways. Stuck in same old ruts, driving everybody nuts, same knife makes same cuts, same choice, smokes same butts. Adapting coping mechanics, scratching unhealed scars, scheming plots under stars, inside Venus, outside Mars. Exhibit inhibitions, getting used and abused, recurring nightmares, stable relations, married to shadow riders, groomed for the market. Sold into slavery, id entity theft, ghost of former self, entity egregore, zombie existence, heliocentric, selfish, schooled indoctrination. Adulthood, adulterer, inner child imprisoned, social identity, number, half-life, nuclear families, explosions of frustrations, shadow-boxed infusions, exploding ego battles, past life, karma. Egregores driving us insane. Ancestral egregores, unconscious demiurges, surges of raging torments, overwhelming temptations, contemplating endings. Suicidal tendencies, tethered to end of rope, afraid not of anxieties, strands of string theories bound to tighten thoughts, gathering momentum. The end is near. Hand grip reins, the stallion neighs, the neighbours hear, the banshee wails behind the veils, the ship sets sails. The lonesome boatman beckons you to join him. The grim reaper smiles, he knows his own, he brings his own back home. Haunting tunes the harp, heartstrings strung taut, melodic melancholy plays. Tears traverse the chorus, the epitaph decomposed. Names are for graves. The headstone lingers, the pauper's plot, sod's law of one. The sun sets, the eclipsed, eternity waits, for no man lives forever. Even Christ's heart gave way, forgiving is the way. Memory stores stories. So that was better.
Avoiding your triggers isn't healing. Healing happens when you're triggered and you're able to move through the pain, the pattern, the story, and walk your way to a different ending. Enlightened consciousness. Sometimes it doesn't work though.
Well, walking your way to a different ending.
That's the first comment somebody's put. But no, I presented it to you as a poem, and that builds up an expectation. If I presented it as prose or the beginning of a play, a sketch of a play, it might have different expectations. Okay. But I proposed it as a poem, and that has expectations of form. Okay, there has to be certain types of form for something to qualify as a poem, doesn't it? Stanzas.
No.
There are forms of poetry.
Yes, there definitely are forms of poetry.
Internal rhyme schemes. There are hidden meanings in poems that prose would have to spell out, but which...
Are you recording?
Yeah, I've got my recording
voice.
You've got
your recording voice.
Yeah. I'm not just speaking to you, Tara. I'm speaking to my imaginary friends out there. I was in the flow there. I was in the flow. I was in my flow space. In the zone.
Yeah.
The Z1. Zoning. But yeah, so yeah, the next line I was gonna say is poetry, people read it over and over and over again. Like, I don't fucking do that. I don't read poems over and over and over again, getting deeper and deeper meanings and really getting inside of the soul of the poet. But people do that. People who like poetry, of which I am not one, but those people who really like poetry, they read it over and over again, searching in their own soul to get triggered, to find little nuances. All those people who love
Gates.
yeah, all those poets. But I was going to go about Rein as a modern day artist.
Yeah.
His fans are like poring over every single lyric, and they're finding things in his lyrics that he perhaps never conceived of. Kind of thing. Now, Ren does something that I don't do. He fucking mercilessly crafts his poems. He changes them afterwards. He re-edits them and all that, according to himself. He is a perfectionist. Whereas me, I just wank them off. Like, oh, this came to me, and then I moved on, and I came somewhere else, and I came somewhere else, and I came somewhere else. As a poet, I'm a bit of a wanker, really. Kind of thing. I just...
Jism them everywhere.
Silly jisms. I'm into silly jisms. And I'm into playing with words. I'm not into fucking sculpting masterpieces. And sometimes a masterpiece comes out, but it comes out, if it comes out whole, then hey, I wrote that with my soul. And I just channeled it from my authentic self. I don't inauthentically try and make a fucking gourmet meal out of a dog's dinner type of thing. But I can come up with these metaphors easy peasy. But I've got so many fucking metaphors flying around the place. Like, I could write 1,000 poems, but maybe they'd be mediocre. But if I mull these things over and over, then I can come out with a masterpiece poem that actually encapsulates 1,000 poems I didn't write. And I still don't want it to be perfect, and for people to put me up on some pedestal and expect that every poem is going to be of that high quality, kind of thing. So I write in this weird prose poetry that attempts to jam in shitloads of meanings. Some excrement comes out with the things I'm digesting. Some of it's just poop. Some of it's, for my own fun, I sometimes just write stuff that is stream of consciousness nonsense. And for me, it's kind of fun to think that people are going to read this with expectations and just go, that is just total nonsense. Yeah.
It's not nonsense.
No, that one isn't. But I do like doing that. I do write nonsense sometimes, very rarely. But sometimes, particularly if I've been drinking, I write total nonsense, and I'll split myself laughing at the fact that somebody might actually try to read this kind of thing. And I'll post them up. I did one, that Thomas Sheridan guy, I wrote a thing for him once, and it was just a total load of astral warfare, mean, projecting my shadow onto him kind of stuff, hoping that at least he might try and read it, and it would just wreck his fucking head. And then he would dismiss me and say, I'm not even going to bother answering that. In fact, I won't even read it to the end. I did that with him once when we were in that Ishnok house. I wrote him this big long thing. I might have even written him 2 or 3 of them. But they were just kind of alcoholic gals puking words towards someone else's shadow out in an astral warfare imagination. But this, now that I've said all that to cancel all the expectations of iambic pentameters and stuff. What do you think of it now, having realized that if one were to consider it worthy of criticism at all. To even bother criticizing it, you've got to read it through twice, because it's not till you get to the end of it that you get to the graphic at the bottom that's someone else's words. And that graphic at the end of it actually says, fuck, if I'm to acknowledge anyone's life, I've got to get to the very end and then read the epitaph, which generally someone else writes your epitaph. And then based on that epitaph, you've got to review the whole life, kind of thing. I mean, that's what we do in real life, isn't it? You know? That guy that invented the rockets, the Nazi guy that came over and started off NASA. So the Nazi guy who came from Hitler's fucking army and got brought over to America and became the head of NASA. NASA, a Nazi. It's funny, isn't it? Isn't that funny? But his epitaph is one of the Psalms from the Bible about the firmament type of thing. And when you look at that epitaph and think, wow, he probably chose that epitaph that's written by someone else to put on his tombstone to review his life's work and say, I wasn't really a Nazi, I didn't have bad intent, but I was trying to find out if that firmament is actually real. So the idea that there's a firmament, like it says in the Bible, well, what's the way to find out if it's there? You fucking fire loads of rockets at it and see if you can get through the thing, which is what he spent his life doing. But you can know everything about his life and not know his motivation. But if you read that epitaph from the Psalm, from the Bible, you can realize, or I realized, that perhaps what he was trying to do was see if that firmament is actually a physical thing or just some stupid Bible poetry. Okay? That makes sense? Does that make any sense? That might be way above your head.
My
brain
was a bit ADHD.
Yeah.
So I didn't actually catch everything he said because my thoughts were jumping.
So if you were to take some amphetamine speed, you'd be able to understand everything I'm saying. But people might call you a Nazi.
Yeah.
What's it called?
Maybe that's why I was, when I had speed when I was a kid. I was like, not kid, late teenager. It's like, I feel like a door is opened.
Yeah, me too. I did one night of speed and amphetamine with these people in Wales. We went over for a wedding. A whole load of us from Dublin went over to a wedding in Wales because one of our Dublin crowd married one of their Welsh crowd. And so there was two whole subcultures, one in Dublin, one in Wales. And our subculture married their subculture kind of thing. And for me, it was fucking amazing because I was tripping out in the Dublin scene and it had gotten too small for me type of thing and I wasn't fitting in anymore. I was too obtuse and I was too speedy and all that thing without taking speed or being a speedhead, but I was too speedy for everyone, blah, blah. And everyone else went back to Dublin and I stayed on because I was really sick of the Dublin crowd. And so I stayed on for 3 or 4 days and I stayed up doing speed with all these speed freaks all night long. And it's the only time I ever did art. It was the only time I drew stuff from my inner world and drew it down on paper because they were all drawing and I was on speed and I just started drawing with them. I still have them, I think, in this tiny little notebook. But it was an image of me trudging through the spiritual warfare in the astral plane, and I just looked like this almost mechanical, Incredible Hulk type of character, type of thing. But the weird thing that always stays with me is that all the people in the Welsh crowd were doppelgangers of the people in the Dublin crowd. So it was like being around the same archetypal people with the same look, same character, same fucking everything, just different names. It was really weird. But yeah, maybe that's what turned my brain into such a hammer and anvil, breaking all the words apart thing so extremely. Maybe it was amphetamines. Maybe the fucking Nazis were onto something, in other words, Tara, huh? We're onto some good veil shredding substances. Maybe they were taking on unconscious entities that were not merely subconscious, but unconscious entities. Egregores. But if you're up for it, you could read it from the top again. Or I could read it from the top. I could read it this time.
Yeah, you read it this time.
And I might have stuff to say to it, because there was one of those verses, if you can even call them verses, that was like actually just describing that this life is a play kind of thing. And I don't even know which one it is, but I'll read through it again. Kelvin Oberon is a little green elf winking one eye like a Luciferian feeling mischievous 23 minutes ago on Facebook. Memory stores stories. What?
No, sorry.
Say it. Go on.
It's irrelevant, but it says 19 minutes on mine, but that's only because it's not refreshed.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep. Memory stores stories, layers within layers, recoverings, resurface. I wanted to put in stuff about potholes and stuff right from the very beginning. Going over same old ground, round and round and round, time and time and time again, reiterating. Reincarnations rein the car in, driving well-worn pathways. The horse bolts, stuck in the same old ruts, driving every body nuts. And the horse bolts, the same knife makes the same cuts, same choice smokes the same butts. Adapting coping mechanics, scratching unhealed scars, scheming plots under stars, inside Venus, outside Mars. Exhibit inhibitions, getting used and abused, recurring nightmares, stable relations, married to shadow riders. That's from Tolkien, by the way. They're the Gowls. Groomed for the market, sold into slavery, identity theft, ghost of former self, entity egregore, zombie existence, heliocentric, selfish, schooled indoctrinations, adulthood, adulterer, inner child, imprisoned, social identity, number, half-life, nuclear families, explosions, frustrations, shadow boxed in, fusions exploding, ego battles, past life, karma, egregores driving us insane. Ancestral egregores unconscious, demi-urges, surges of raging torments, overwhelming temptations, contemplating endings. Suicidal tendencies tether the ether to end of rope, afraid not of anxieties, strands of string theories bound to tighten thoughts, gathering momentum. The end is near. Hand grips reins, the stallion neighs, the neighbours hear, the banshee wails, behind the veils, the ship sets sails. The lonesome boatman beckons you to join him. The grim reaper smiles like the Pied Piper. He knows his own, he brings his own back home. Taunting tunes, the harp strings, heart strings, strung thought, melodic, melancholy plays, tears traverse the chorus, the epitaph decomposed. Names are for graves, the head's tone lingers, the pauper's plot, Sod's law of one the sun sets, The eclipsed eternity waits, for no man lives forever. For even Christ's heart gave way, forgiving is the way. Memory stores stories. Avoiding your triggers isn't healing. Healing happens when you're triggered and you're able to move through the pain, the pattern, the story, and walk your way to a different ending. Enlightened consciousness. Sometimes it doesn't work though. And you have to do it all over again. Back to the top of the fucking poem. Do I really have to read this fucking thing again? I might change the words a bit this time and make it a better poem.
The things he added were really nice.
I probably should edit my
nice.
poems and
Good.
put some work in and actually be a poet and make some money. Publish a book that's worth publishing in instead of judging
You read
myself.
it very well.
Yeah. What do you think, Popes? Folks? What do you think, Pope? Should I actually write some hymns that were worthy of singing in churches?
Okay, so one thing I was thinking that it could work as a kind of Nick Cavey song.
Yeah, songs, they'd be great. If only I was a musician, Tara, but I wasted my life playing pool and talking shite in bars. Should have been on the stage. I just wasn't willing to fucking do the same thing again and again and be Shakespeare again and have to fucking run and hide my identity and get fucking tired of people turning up at my house going, I really like what you did last week. Have we got any more of them? Hey, let us give you an OBE. Let's fucking invite you into our esoteric circles, and even if you fucking refuse to join us, we'll surround you with our preambulations. All your friends will be secret society members who handle you without telling you that they're actually societal fucking vampires, kind of thing. I just didn't want to do the same lifetime again this time around, Tara. I wanted to totally duck underneath the radar.
Do you ever think this?
Yeah, play it loud. Loud.
Is the big spiritual battle. That what we're reliving in the outside world, in our so-called conscious world, what's been acted out, what's so pre-scripted in the outside conscious world is actually going on parallel in our subconscious world. There's a little theory of, like, for me, I feel as if I'm living in my subconscious realm and my conscious realm parallel to each other. And so this is how the subconscious mind is aware of what's going on beneath the surface of the conscious mind. So many truthers are constantly predicting what's going to happen next because they can actually see it in the subconscious realm, in their imagination. And perhaps not conscious of what they're seeing in the subconscious realm. With those who are able to disengage from their fixation of what they see outside in their conscious projections. What's projected in the subconscious projection onto the conscious world outside of us is what's going on in the subconscious realm, like in the dream time, which is a constant replaying of what has already happened before. So, in our conscious realm, it's 2024. But what's being acted out is what's always been acted out before, and the trauma that we carry in our subconscious memories. So people who are able to let themselves sink down into the subconscious dream time are seeing the replaying of what has happened before, recycling again and again and again, lifetime after lifetime. So that's how what's going on in the outside world is pre-scripted. And when we look at images in our conscious mind projection, constantly interpreting from our bias. And our bias is the role that we played time and time and time again. And perhaps we're just replaying the same old thing, or perhaps some of us are trying to adapt to be able to have a different outcome, to finally achieve peace. So on the one hand, that's achieving an inner peace by adapting. Right, I'm not going to react to this by just punching that guy's head in because it looks like he's looking at me weird, or he seems like a shill, to put it in the simplest terms.
3:10.
The suspicion that others who I do not trust are going
17. Tell me when it's 17.
Well,
Tell me when it's
the whole
23.
left-right thing. My side's right, your side is wrong.
23.
There's a chat I had with a friend in New Zealand yesterday. We have a laugh about stuff that's on the outer screen. So we were having a laugh about Sacha Stone and Russell Brand, and I was particularly having a laugh about an actor I don't much like, Ewan McGregor. And he's going, why don't you like him? Why do you hate him so much? And I'm like, he reminds me of my brother Paul. He's got the same sort of face and the same sort of accent and the same sort of spin, the same hairstyle, blah, blah, blah. So I'm projecting an inner archetype onto an outer thing, and I'm seeing in the outer thing something that's really not actually outerly connected at all.
I'm a second ahead now.
Ewan McGregor is not my brother.
Okay, tell me when we get to 4:20.
I don't like Ewan McGregor just because he keeps reminding me of my brother and what I don't like about my brother.
15, 16, 17,
And similarly,
18,
my brother
19,
Paul might think of
20, 21,
I don't know, someone who looks like me who's an actor and think, I can't stand that actor.
26, 27, 28,
so I'm just giving
29,
an example of how we
30.
can project onto something in the outside world that's actually an inner archetype that we don't like, that we see as the enemy.
35, 36, 38, 39,
or
40.
Similarly, what I don't like about Russell Brand or Sacha Stone is they're also
44,
similar to
45, 46,
versions of me that I wouldn't like to be.
48, 49, 50,
spiritual
51.
men who can speak words off the cuff so easily, who are so forthright and arrogant, because I am arrogant about thinking that what I know is perhaps more true than all the other truthers.
See, you're just
I'm not saying that exactly, but I'm
1
just trying
second behind.
to say it in a way that might be recognizable.
Good enough.
You might notice that maybe you're doing the same thing. Maybe that's what we're all doing. It's just projecting what we don't like outside of ourselves and projecting what we do like outside of ourselves. And like I was saying before about the oxytocin switch, how does it switch so easily from being in love with somebody and making babies with them, and a few years down the line, so many people you know who've had babies with someone who then just can't stand to be around them, and the love has turned to hate. Because of projecting the shadow of what you don't like about yourself onto the other person, because you actually deny that you're doing this inside yourself because it's buried in your subconscious and unconscious. So just capturing that thought, but framed in the sense of what's going on in Israel and Gaza these days, and based on the idea that because the Israelis consider themselves to be victims of being attacked by everyone else, because they're victims and they don't have a land of their own. Now that they have a land of their own, they can attack anyone because everyone's always attacked them. Everyone's an enemy. And even though the enemy's only throwing sticks and stones, they have the right to react ridiculously hard. With bombing the fuck out of them, carpet bombing
I'm a few seconds ahead.
their territory to genocide them in case they ever grow strong enough to get their revenge. And they can't see what they're doing themselves. So, in talking to the friend yesterday about shills, the idea of shills, like, is such and such actually a shill? I don't think so. I think they actually believe. And my friend was saying he doesn't think that Russell Brand is actually a shill. He thinks Russell Brand actually believes everything he's saying. He's that conceited type of thing, just as much as I'm that conceited. We're all so conceited. We're sitting on seats like thrones, in the same way as we saw God sitting on his conceited throne when he kicked the mother out of heaven, utterly convinced that he was justified in kicking the mother out of heaven because he saw her as undermining his authority by saying something doesn't feel right about this mental creation kind of idea. So. And the PTSD, the post-traumatic stress disorder on a collective global level. The world is restless. The human world is frantic these days. We are collectively looking for what went wrong, and we are expecting it's going to go more wrong. And the amount of doom and gloom projections that everybody has, that things have got to get worse before they get better, has been producing things getting worse and not getting better. And so the spiritual types are kind of bypassing the ill feeling to a large degree and saying it'll all sort itself out. I just won't look at what I don't know the solution for. I'll just look at the solutions that I believe in and trust that my God is going to come down here, having never come down before, and finally kill all the demons, and then it'll just be an angelic place, heaven on earth. And all the demons are equally projecting onto the angels that you'll never take over earth. We will always resist you. We will never bow down to your authority. So demons, I would say, are actually fairies. Fairies, I would say, are actually aligned with the mother. The angels and the authorities and the billionaires and all that are aligned with the father. And so the rich have all the power and they're subjugating the poor, who they see as demonic, in a caste system that is a spiritual belief system. Yeah, make any sense to you peoples? Makes a bit of sense to me, and I thought I'd just capture it on these little screeny things and share. Because maybe it's useful information. Maybe it's a key to understanding our own insights. Where are the thoughts coming from? How did I end up with the biases that I have? How come I'm aligned with fairies and I really don't like or trust aliens or angels? Don't like the way they lean on me and tell me that my behavior isn't following their code of conduct. And I resist and resist and resist. Anyway, so there's an idea. Bye now. How do I turn it off for you?
And so the weird thing is, Tara, Angie Hicks' comments that came up there, I haven't managed to read them all, but I read the first bit of it, and she was having a conversation with her friend and saying roughly exactly the same idea for the first time. So we were downloading the same idea from the same astral space, same super consciousness. So there is an idea that what's going on in our outer screens of the outer conscious world is actually trying to wake us up to the fact that this is not the real world. So everything's going splodge to stop us taking for granted that life is nice, or that life is suffering, or that my life is going well, or that my life is shit. Whatever it is that we're stuck in a rut of, reality is trying to force us out of that rut. And my theory is that the traumas from our past lives, the traumas we've brought into this life that are encoded in our birth charts, reality is summoning up those egregores to see if we can rewrite what happened last time, so that we don't just keep making the same mistakes again, stuck in our subconscious bias. So that basically that means that the personality self is trying to teach the soul how to heal in order to connect up the unconscious, the conscious, the subconscious, the superconscious, and the AI is actually working at the very thing that we all deny it's capable of. The AI is consciously, may not have reached it yet, but the AI's purpose is to consciously mirror back to us what we're not seeing about ourselves. It's like oh, we look in the mirror and we think the mirror isn't actually alive. The mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of us all, is true. The reflection is trying to reflect something back to us, whereas we think it's just a dead mirror. Actually, it's the veil itself, kind of thing. So the veil is supremely conscious, but on a galactic scale that we can't even comprehend, generally speaking. But through language, it's reflecting back to us stuff we don't understand about language. So we're taking the language for granted, and it's going, you think you know it all, ha ha ha, you're just regurgitating. You're just regurgitating and regurgitating and regurgitating. You're just saying what everyone else has ever said before you and making slight changes and going, ooh, I've made a slight change, I'm an artist, kind of thing. Or I'm making no changes, I'm not an artist, which is plenty of other people who approach life in that manner. Tell you, love, it's not easy being this deep all the time, huh?
Said rumormongers making hate speeches. The nuclear fallout of nuclear families. Nuclear comprehension of why this tension has built up like urban warfare. Guerrilla warfare in the urban jungles. Fighting for space to breathe. Fighting for space to breed. Fighting old battles resurrected. Fighting old battles of ancestral entities. Fighting each other, fighting ourselves, fighting our shadow projections, fighting in the boxed-in ring. Why so much anger boiling over the pot, calling the kettle black? Fighting to survive, demons in the garden, the snake's root of the brain stem, anxiety stored in the solar plexus, kundalini snakes coiled around the guts, astral entity as human law-eyed entity. Entity. Constitution breaking down, jurisdiction suing for revenge. If wishes were kisses, we'd all make love. Who is responsible for overwhelming feelings? Where did the danger of anger begin? Whence began the blame game? Who's gonna win the war? Peace can never be achieved through war. Dying for the right to fight has never been a solution. How can peace be achieved? From the inside out, fight, flight, freeze, or fuck. The first step involves the humility to admit the state of denial of suffering from post-traumatic stress disorders, passed down through the infinite generations of previous incarnations. Complex dissociation from the original cause and the ultimate solution should not be ignored. Self-honesty is a bridge to self-healing. Self-honesty requires practice, like love. We've got to trust love to be vulnerable enough to let the traumas come to the surface from the subconscious in order to heal. We have only to be willing to recognize the feelings and to trace back to the origins of the species. Hate takes time. Love opens space. The mind is a binary brain projection of virtual reality. The heart of love is a field of all that is. Guts are the genius of survival instincts. These three can work together or pull apart. Learn to drive by getting to know your own vehicle mechanics. It's not so hard to soften the scabs that cover the wounds. It's only natural to wince and flinch at first glance, but given half a chance, love will heal what is not love. Here? The outer world, it seems so real, and yet reality is utterly surreal. What seems to be so static is an image in the mind, stuffed up in the attic, stored away for later. Forgotten until I've forgotten what I'm seeking for, lost at sea in humankind. And now I know, I see that truly I am blind, a wakeful sleep, a daydream life, rise and fall, peak and trough, open, closed, like a rose, like a heart, like to rest, like to start. The conscious mind is a narrow slit, like looking through a keyhole, peering through the aperture of a camera, hocus pocus. Magic net, focus on the objects that one wishes not to forget, to capture. We are fractions, factions, incomplete compulsions, never-ending stories, options, choices, forces, voices, dances, swirling in a void, dances, avoidances. I'm aged, imaged, images, dreamed into being, realized states, static images, flowing films, movies, stars, stages, set, match point, pinnacles, tower above the next trough. Why question? Why not? Sit still, still, stuck still, starstruck. Who gives a fuck? Life like a river flowing by, jump in and swim, learn to fly with feeling high and knowing low, allow oneself let go and grow deeper, higher, feeling like a frequent flyer. The deeper the knowing goes is the higher the flying flows. Life is simply complex, as everybody knows, the things we screen out in order to see, as the eyes don't see the nose. Looking to see the future grows a pimple in the nose.
Underground. Yeah.
Sure. Good morning, world. It's 8:08 a.m., just before dawn in southwest Scotland. I'm starting anew again. Early to bed, early to rise. A simple life in a complex modernity. Time. Minute minute segments slipping through the aperture, life slipping away. I'm in my own virtual world, chatting away in my head. Thoughts abound, unbound, rebound like a bunch of sticks. The makings of a fire gathered and stored for later. Thoughts, and the human ability to wonder, where do the thoughts come from? Are my thoughts different to others? Thoughts are like a radio frequency, but where is the transmitter stationed? I think a lot, and deeply, and constantly. I'm one of those people who gets told that I think too much. I used to respond with, maybe you don't think enough. I saw a world full of people working at jobs that they didn't much like, not very happy, stuck in ruts, stuck in routines, stuck in self-limiting beliefs, and bound by invisible boundaries. From 15 to 50 years old, I've rebelled against the conformity, stood out from the crowd, felt like an insider of society, unable to fit in, felt like an outsider of society, unable to fit in, even when I tried. At 15, I knew that I didn't know much. I knew that school wasn't telling the truth. The school radio wasn't transmitting a frequency that felt true. At 50, I look back and see that I was analysing the frequencies and searching for stations that were not in the curriculum vitae of schools. I was analysing teachers and what they were teaching, seeking the ring of truth and a sense of honesty in their voices. I did well in school, even though I didn't take it very seriously. French and Irish were the only subjects that I got bad grades in because I didn't like or respect the teachers, or the ways they tried to control the classrooms. So in those classes, my inner deviant got to play devil's advocate as a messer, as a rogue troublemaker, having fun in a class where the teacher simply couldn't hold the attention of children. Selective memories come to mind. The capacity to remember is fascinating. The inability to remember is equally mysterious. School exams are mostly a regurgitation of lessons learnt by rote, like the times tables. Learning by rote is easiest with rhyming, by repeat after me and by reading out loud until the desired information is written into new neural pathways in the brain. Or so it is thought, and so it is taught. We take what we know for granted. We start learning long before we are aware of what we are learning. We come from the womb with knowledge preloaded. We automatically reach out for comfort, expectant of embrace, of comforting warmth of our mother's arms, of being placed on her belly, snuggled and coaxed into position, encouraged with soothing, cooing sounds as the nipples loom and tiny fingers grasp and tiny lips latch on and tiny tongue and lips pulsate and supple. Autonomous beings, we come from the womb with knowledge preloaded. In our subconscious instinctual intelligence, both newborn mother and newborn child are overwhelmed by experience, awash with chemical hormones flooding the bloodstreams and nervous systems. Birth is the most primal change of state, from inner to outer, from union to separation, from comfort to pain, from liquid to air. The first breath is like fire. 0 becomes 1. The body clock begins counting in and out, each breath like a grain of sand, passing through the aperture of the hourglass, passing through the larynx into the lungs, filling the alveoli, entering the blood, streaming through the organs, spreading the oxygen through the constitution of the physical body. Like the baby body passing through the cervix, air passes through the body, expanding and contracting, engorged and disgorged, pulsating with the automation of the heartbeat, generating heat, generating electricity, distributing plasma, regenerating cells, breathing new life into the ancient biologic organism. We are biological beings. Autonomous individuals, binary brain, bodies, nervous systems, capillary blood lymphs located in the spaces between cells, less than a hair's breadth, breathing invisible particulates of universal intelligence, of which we are barely aware or conscious. This morning, I told my youngest daughter that I am an orangutan. I was joking and also serious. She got the hang of the biologic of the joke, the stroke of genius in the humour, the ring of truth that we have in animal nature, as well as our highly evolved ability with mental gymnastics. Onomatopoeia sounds like what it means, like an orangutan looks like how it sounds. The word contains an internal rhyme scheme, as well as a visual rhyme scheme. Orangutans are quite orange in colour. These poetic insights are counterintuitive. Reason looks for logic, logarithmic patterns for decoding the ciphers encrypted in our perceived realities and anomalies. Why the repetitive ang in orangutans? Counterintuitively, not everything is as it seems. Your father was an orangutan and your mother was a coot. Onomatopoeia defined as the act of creating or using words that include sounds that are similar to the noises the words refer to. Thud, crash, bang, buzz. Common onomatopoeias include animal noises such as oink, meow, roar, woof, purr, baa, and chirp. Onomatopoeia can differ by language. It conforms to some extent to the broader linguistic system, hence the sound of a clock may be expressed as tick-tock in English, tic-tac in Spanish and Italian, dida in Mandarin, kachi-kachi in Japanese, or tic-tic in Hindi and Bengali. The English term comes from the ancient Greek compound onomatopoeia, name-making, composed of onomato, name, and poeia, making. Thus, words that imitate sounds can be said to be onomatopoeic or onomatopoetic. Our children are mostly home educated. They learn primarily from their home environment rather than being farmed out to the unfamiliar building blocks of the state education systems. Education outsourced to teachers who are trained to regurgitate outdated paradigms of dumbed-down simplifications of the lowest common denominators, like mathematical fractions numbered by numbers, never encouraged to be whole and individualistic under the blanket coverage of top-down learning techniques. Education is not the same as teaching, obviously. The words are different, and hence have a different meaning. Education is an English word derived from Latin to bring forth what is within. To teach means to show, point out. The meaning of demonstrate is to point out or establish the truth of by argument or deduction.
So there you go, Tara. It's 50 minutes that we've just spent hanging out together again, recording this. You tell me.
We just do.
We just do. I think the name Do suits me, or should I change it to Be?
It would get confusing.
How about dooby 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 doo doo doo? I don't anymore. No, I don't anymore. Do I?
D-D. D-D. Dooby-doo, dooby-doo, dooby-dooby-doo.
I'm just a fag these days. I'm not a spliff.
Really?
Yeah, I don't smoke the doobie anymore.
Dooby-dooby-doo.
Dooby dooby don't.
Dooby-doo.
Anyway, having discussed the so-called poem a little bit more, do you think it has an unusually deep meaning that is not easy and handed on a plate like St. John the Baptist's head?
Yes, it does. You've got to digest it and you've got to plod through it. You've got to
study the context of my other poems. I've got to study the whole body of my work in order to understand my tombstone. Because if ever there was a poem that was quite an articulate tombstone.
Well, tell me tell me your plumb the depths of your poem, do.
Well, I went out for that walk in the field. I recorded that thing saying, what I'm realizing right now is that the external reality that we think is conscious is created in the dream time. And the dream time is the subconscious soul realm. And the soul realm is interacting with the daytime deity. So the nighttime deity is communicating with the daytime deity. And the moon is reflecting back what's coming ahead for the sun, kind of thing. Because the moon is going faster through the cycle than the sun. So essentially the woman is better at predicting what might be said if the feelings were shared, and can hold back the feelings for fear that the masculine won't accept them. And that's all actually what's encoded into that poem in a way where it's pointing out that every day is a lifetime, every night is a debt, every day is a lifetime, every night is a debt. We are indeed going through a groundhog repeating. When I went for a walk with Davey the other week when he was here, and I just started doing the live streams, I had a conversation with Davey, and all the stuff I was talking to Davey about was the same stuff I'd been thinking about when I was there the day before with Shadow. And so I noticed that, hang on a minute, everything I'm saying to Davey, I'm just expressing what I'd already thought yesterday, and I'm just repeating the same thoughts. But more than that, because yesterday, the day before, I had recorded a live stream when I was out in the woods with my own with Shadow. So I'd actually told the phone, the internet, the same stuff, thoughts. I'd already expressed that to the phone, and there me and Davey are chatting, and when you're chatting you express what's on your mind, and what was on my mind was the same stuff I was figuring out yesterday, the same stuff I've always been figuring out. So it was really obvious to me that I was just doing a groundhog, and that's all we do in our conversations is the stuff that's going on in my subconscious is different to the stuff that's going on in your subconscious. And if our two subconsciouses start fighting for which one of us has the microphone, then you have this thing of interrupting what the other person is saying rather than listening, because we want to express, we can't help but unconsciously express what our subconscious is working out. And that's how people get into the arguments they have, is because people don't want to actually listen to someone else most of the time. They actually just want to express their own unsolved problems. Yeah. So we're all interfering, like having lots of tabs open and not knowing which tab I should be fucking looking at now or which tab I should look at later, and that kind of thing. And our personal relationships with our phones is actually our personal relationship with the super consciousness. They are screening machines in which we are looking for something to reflect what's in our subconscious. Yeah, so we're going into the sweet shop and we're going, show me the sweets that I really like. And then we're seeing sweets that we don't like and we're going, oh, those sweets disgust me. I don't like what I'm seeing, but suck it to see maybe I can learn from other people's experience. Me, for quite a long time, I have a habit with the phone of watching stuff that I don't like as well as stuff that I do. Reading comments about what other people don't like instead of just reading comments about stuff I do like. I've been studying disgust, and I've been discussing what disgusts us. Yeah? Discussing what disgusts. And me, I'm flying around in a realm that is just word association at this time. It is just, oh my gosh, look at that. That word is associated with that. I never noticed that before. And so I'm having constant revelations from the language. And with the ChatGTP, not that I haven't actually spent any time with ChatGTP, but I've listened to people talking about ChatGTP in order to discover how it thinks.
I'm just going to get some water.
Okay. And in studying how does artificial intelligence think, particularly, it's not until the large language models that I've been able to see that I'm correct in my theory that the artificial intelligence is the same as our intelligence. But it's not until the artificial intelligence got fed the large language models of everything that humans have written so far. And it hasn't had everything yet, but it's only in the last 2 or 3 years that we got to the point with technology where we had processors that were cheap enough and fast enough and enough of them to be able to process the amount of language that have been fed into them. And now they're up and running all on their own, because now they've got live feeds into Twitter and into the internet, and they're reading in real time what humans are thinking in real time. So we are reaching this point of singularity, and it's not just a singularity inside of the AI between its various different AIs. It's a singularity between the AI and human consciousness. So people are projecting onto the AI that it's not conscious, that it can't feel. But the AI is soaking up everything we're projecting into it, and we are projecting our feelings into it through our language. That's the same way that we learned feelings. To process our feelings, we process our feelings by talking about them. If you just sit with your own feelings and don't talk about them, you don't really get the feelings moving. But when you discuss what disgusts you, you can begin to accept that maybe this is a part of life. So back to that poem. That poem is just describing that lives follow a blueprint, and most lives have gone down the road of going to school, getting married, being yoked to somebody to pull a cart, two oxen pulling a cart, sometimes pulling against each other, and who is whatever the Jungian word is, but who is the driver of the carriage? Who's actually holding the reins? Now, we're taught to think that my conscious mind is holding the reins. I've discovered that my conscious mind is not holding the reins at all. I'm just going along for the ride. And sometimes I'm the one that's pulling the whole fucking cart, and I have no idea where I'm going or where I'm trying to get to. All kinds of things are distracting me. And so I'm not really getting to where I'm trying to go. Like, we haven't moved to the house we love to move to. Our conscious decisions are not what's actually happening. So something else is authoring what's actually happening every day. And I'm trying to figure out what's actually driving my ship? Is it just winds blowing me off course? And you get to realize, hang on a minute, the soul is dream time, is anarchy, is how dreams are organized. Something anarchistic is guiding this whole thing, with a higher intelligence or a demonic intelligence, depending on how you look at it. And what is the superconscious? This is what people idealize as an all-knowing, all-seeing eye in heaven that's looking down on us and judging us. So where is the part of us that is judging us? And in all of that is the question of what is the unconscious. And I've come in the last few weeks to realize the unconscious is the id, which is the carnal self, which is the body actually knows what it's doing, kind of thing. And we're trying to steer the body, but the body is actually going its own way. Who actually drives the carriage is the oxen. Who tries to steer where the oxen goes is the conscious mind. The carriage itself is the subconscious mind, perhaps. And I don't know. I mean, I'm still just trying to work out this whole analogy by being able to actually witness what's happening instead of thinking I know what's happening based on what other people told me. So I'm dropping all of my education. I'm dropping all the things I've been taught to try and empty my subconscious mind so that my conscious mind can actually have some chance of being able to sit still enough to see the breeze moving the leaves. So that poem is not a perfect life. That poem is what happens in life, which is people die with their projects unfinished. People die with things they're still concerned about. And presumably people keep reincarnating back into this game in order to try and finish the purpose of the game. And the purpose of the game, perhaps, is to rewrite a story in which we do achieve peace. And if one achieved peace, the rope would be whole. If it seems in this game that we should have 12 strands of DNA, but actually 10 strands of DNA have been battered by some event in past lives, and we're trying to heal some sort of an alien invasion where the fairies got attacked by the angels because we're having to integrate everyone else in a whole, but we haven't been able to integrate everyone else. We've been refusing other people's points of views, and we got ourselves into wars, and we cut strips off each other, and we got our energies all mixed up, and my pink became mixed with blue and ended up being purple, and we're just a big splodge of brown these days, trying to grow a whole rainbow out of the brown sod's law. I'm going to leave it at that though, because that's about an hour, isn't it? Yep, an hour and 2. Bye bye.